Hey everyone, this is the first, what will hopefully be a series that I'm calling Dylan Rants. You ask me questions, and I do best, rant on them. So, most of the questions that have come in, folks, I put out a request for questions earlier today, and most of the questions that came in were about the subject of survival, of primitive survival. I am an outdoor educator. I've taught primitive survival skills, natural skills, plant identification, bird language, the works, for going on 20 years now, something like that. It's been a bit. My adult life basically has been spent working in this field professionally. Um, there's I'd love to answer other questions on all the other stuff I know. I'd love to answer questions on paleontology, on philosophy. I've got some beautiful questions here actually about tender masculinity, which is another subject that's important to me, and another one of my series I just started. So, but I think it's good to start with this because this is what I've done professionally, and I'd really like to put my money where my mouth is on this. So, jumping right in, this is actually a perfect question, which helps cover a lot of my critiques and reservations about uh, survival skills in general, and sort of the idea, the ethos or the culture around survival skills, because they have a reputation of being, very hyper masculine, and I don't like using the term. I think it's overused, but sort of toxic masculinity. And more than toxic masculinity, I would elaborate to say toxic self-sufficiency, toxic independence. The idea that I can learn enough skills so that I won't have to rely on anyone else. I'm never gonna be so vulnerable that I need other people to help me, to provide me with food or with clothing or keep me warm at night. And a very sad and desperate perspective to approach these skills, which I think they're, for example, making fire by friction. For those who aren't familiar, it's effectively rubbing two sticks together to make fire, and I'll do some videos on that. Um, it's one of the most beautiful physical skills I've ever seen people do. It never ceases to absolutely amaze me. Every time I see someone make a fire primitively, especially with materials they've just found off the landscape, every time I've seen them make a coal and then blow a coal up into flames, it without fail will bring a tear to my eye because it's so beautiful. And for me, that's what survival skills are about: the primal connection to who we are as humans, who we've been for the vast majority of our history. Throughout history, there've been, if we're counting modern humans, anatomically modern Homo sapiens, there have been 100 billion humans that have been born. The majority of them have died. There's 8 billion of them right now. So 92 billion humans have been alive, and of those 92, probably 80 billion at least had never interacted with metal, never interacted with human-made glass. They were living with the materials they had off the landscape, and that is who we are. We're still very much a species that is adapted to that. So this question, jumping right in, this question from Linda is how you build a tribe and connections after a collapse. So after one of the things that gets talked about a lot in the survival skills, unfortunately, associated with preppers and all that, is what happens when the zombie apocalypse comes, right? So how do you the addendum, after the survival bros survivalist fantasy, and that really is what it is. It's a fantasy. I'll go into the woods with my crossbow and my crossbow and my pistol and my machete and my bivy tent and my water purification tablets and all this, and I will survive alone. First off, that is just a fantasy. That's ridiculous. A lone human, that's a desperate situation that you're in. Um, it's possible to survive alone, but why? Why would you not want to have people with you? Why would you not want to have a community with you. We're evolved as a tribal species. Our closest relatives, chimps and bonobos, they live in troops, in tribes. You're never going to be away from, a half dozen or so of people, individuals that you know well, that know you probably better than anyone else. So the fantasy of, oh, me and a bunch of other angry boys with our operator beards and our big scowls and everything, we're somehow going to make a community and not be at each other's throats within 5 minutes. That's absolutely ridiculous. And especially, I think it's important for me, a central philosophy for me in everything I do, whether it's teaching survival skills or teaching land stewardship, or even how I relate to art, to poetry, to the metalwork that I do. A central point in all of that is, if this philosophy, if this skill cannot be integrated into raising a family, then it's effectively irrelevant for human beings. It's great, it's nice, it's dessert, after the meal. So unfortunately, I see very little in the survival skills world focused on, yeah, but how do you keep children? How do you keep young children, babies? How do you keep them warm? How do you take care of them? Those are the more important questions that people should be asking. So I can't give a complete answer. I've never been through a massive societal collapse. I hope I don't ever have to see a zombie apocalypse where airborne rabies becomes a problem. I hope none of us have to live to see this. I hope civilization sorts itself out and becomes more sustainable. But the so I've said in place, I've never can't speak from experience. I can only speak from my understandings of human nature and which skills I've seen work and how I've seen people function, camping, or spending time in the woods with shelters they built out of out of debris, out of materials they found on the landscape. And that whole attitude of, I'm going to be this stoical, laconic, I don't speak much, but when I speak, it matters. No, no, that's just bullshit. You're lying to yourself, and I'll be let me be sensitive about it. If you're feeling those thoughts, if that's your relationship to these skills, um, I'm so sorry that you've come to that. That's a I feel I it hurts me. If yeah, I genuinely feel sorrow for you, because I have friends who have been caught up into that, and it's just sad. It's okay, brother. It's okay. You don't have to do this alone. And anyone expecting you to be able to do it alone is wrong, is completely wrong. You like the strong laconic male, the big scary creature. Sure, that exists in our. I'm always referencing human behavior compared to our closest relatives. That exists in the primate world. The silverback gorilla, yeah, but they're looking after a family. That's the reason why they're doing that. If you're not taking care of someone else, the whole need to bring, in the what's in your go bag, the need to bring, I'm gonna bring my pistol and my shotgun. Like, well, who are you defending? What are you even doing? Just one person, yeah, you can survive and live. You're gonna go crazy. You're going to lose your damn mind if you're alone for too long. And God bless the few human beings that have the neurological capacity to not be broken by that. But that happens in chimpanzees. It happens in gorillas. Individuals that are alone. That's a seriously distressed creature. And an important thing about about great apes and humans, great apes. We're not adapted to groom ourselves alone. We literally need someone to scratch our back. If you're in the woods, if you spend any time. So my experience is predominantly in the Northeast, in Connecticut, in Vermont, in the Pine Barrens. You need someone to help you check for ticks, or you will get a tick somewhere that you can't see, and you will get a horrible spirochete disease. And if you're just in the woods alone, that will kill you. You will die from that. So you need other people, and you don't need to have that many big, scary, aggressive people. As far, I guess, to try and answer the question a bit further, I want to get along to the other questions in a second. This is a wonderful question, Linda. Thank you. How to build tribe? How to find your people? Let's people people you know and care about. Um, if we're trying to find a cross section of skills, if we're trying to assemble the post zombie village, pick what is the Walking Dead, right? The post zombie whatever. Um, you're just living in the woods away from whatever problem there is out there, or there's only a handful of you. Uh, are you, like, as a community? Would you be planning on ever having more children? Or are you just going to be a handful of old people who live in the woods and then die by yourselves, leaving the last two old people really sad and having to freeze to death because no one's going to help feed the fire when they're really old, right? That's the end result of that fantasy. So if you were uh, trying to raise a family, is there anyone in your group who has midwifery skills? Do you have a midwife? Do you have anyone who is capable of handling a breech birth? Do you have anyone who is capable of, I forget the name of the process. I'm not a midwife. Do you have anyone who knows how to resuscitate, not resuscitate, anyone knows how to suscitate? Anyone knows how to drain the fluid from baby's lungs if not fully drained, or how to perform, chest, what do they call it? Chest palpitations, to encourage a baby that's born without a heartbeat. Do you have anyone who can handle birth emergencies? So first off, if your tribe doesn't have a midwife, people are going to die, and it's going to be the fault of whoever didn't find the midwife. Does your tribe have anyone who knows how to handle diseases? Do you have anyone who knows how to? Do you have anyone as not just basic first aid, but do you have someone who can clearly identify, hey, this is mumps, or this is measles? Do you have anyone who has that, what's it, your family doctor, the old, town doctor, village doctor level of skills? Do you have anyone in your community who can pull a tooth? Um, you get a dental abscess, and you can just die from it. I think one of the most realistic scenes in a movie depicting survival was Tom Hanks' scene in Castaway, where he had to knock a bad tooth out with a rock and an ice skate. And like, yeah, that's what it's like when it's just you, and that's on a tropical island. You're not going to freeze to death. There's plenty of food. That's the kind of thing that you're going to have to worry about. 99% whatever of survival, or living without without the modern conveniences, is dealing with those small emergencies that creep up on you. I don't personally know anyone who's died from a bear attack, or from being shot by raiders, or whatever else. Whatever, pick your thing that's in the zombie fantasy. Most of the things that are going to kill you it's going to be disease, it's going to be accidents, it's going to be unfortunate situations. Um, do you have someone in your community who knows how to cook? That's important. That skill is so important to your sanity, to your ability to produce food that tastes good. Do you have someone who knows how to cook? With cook, I'm gonna use the term primitively. That's that doesn't mean necessarily without anything. Just a buckskin backpack. But do you have someone who can cook over a fire, make a delicious meal that's nutritious? can take the raw materials of whatever it is you're cooking, whether you have a garden or you're just cooking what you foraged. Do you have, if your people say, oh, I'll eat cattail roots. Have you ever cooked cattail roots? Do you know anyone who knows how to cook cattail roots so they taste good? That's an important part of your sanity, especially in the Western world. Who today doesn't know what it's like to eat potatoes without salt? Not as a matter of choice from your blood pressure, because there is no salt or no butter. Who here has ever experienced that? We live in a world with abundant spices, and that makes food taste amazing. And we're all accustomed to this, these Fantasia flavors. And I gotta say, being able to cook, that's that top tier skill, survival skill. That's wildly important. Um, do you have anyone, like, how much do you enjoy the company of these people? I think I love NASA's take on what they're looking for in astronauts. Is one of the important characteristics. People need to be highly capable, having a sense of humor, survival skill, absolutely a survival skill. If you can't laugh at something bad happening, or laugh at how, just the absurdity of existence, of life, you're not going to have a healthy emotional reaction to a lot of what you're going to deal with. So find people. You don't have to have people who can, are the funniest person out there. I mean, I'm freaking hilarious, so I'm gifted at that. But more important than having a stand-up comedian in your community is, can everyone laugh at themselves? I would say, as a must-have personality trait for living in a tribe, living in a community. I have friends who want to homestead and are trying. Hey, we'll get a bunch of people together and we'll buy land and we'll all share it. And like, can they all laugh at themselves? Because if they can't, there's gonna be a problem. You're gonna have some issue, and you're gonna get hurt feelings and resentment if you can't bring stuff up. I always say, I think I have a sort of a Mary Poppins saying about humor. Humor, it's the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. Reality is a bitter pill, and it's nice to have some. It's nice to be able to laugh at that. That, I would say, that's wildly important. Um, do you have a musician? Do you have musicians? People who can sing, people who can produce music. I can't I can't begin to describe the difference it makes when you're sitting around a campfire and there's no TV, there's no internet, there's nothing. We're all used to having these phones or whatever to entertain ourselves. At night, you've just got stories, and there's the magic of sitting around a fire and having a bard. Use the Dungeons and Dragons terminology. Do you have a bard in your group? It fire having a fire really makes it. It feels like a home. Having music, that I just if you haven't had that experience of sitting around a fire, particularly if you're like, hey, we're gonna be here tonight. There's a difference in it's hard to put into words, a difference sitting around a fire and then going to sleep in a house night, and sitting around a fire playing music, and that's the highlight of the evening, when you've brought music to the natural world and you feel like, oh, this is something we're bringing here. There's just something unspeakably magical. I've never experienced music with greater magic and wonder than sitting around a campfire. So that's an essential survival skill. Humans are incredibly tough. Just like I mentioned often, using Homo erectus level technology. Just, can you wield fire from lightning? Can you make a stone blade? Can you make a stone axe? Can you make a sharpened spear? I mean, Homo erectus lived in the Ice Age, and they had a brain much smaller than ours. They ran that town. Nothing was preying on them. They were apex predators of their time. So as far as physical skills, to not die, to feed yourself, it doesn't take. It is difficult, mostly because we're just unfamiliar with it, and also most of the time whenever I've been on survival treks or seen people trying to survive, they say, "Oh, I need to survive, so I'm gonna go places where there's no humans." Like, yeah, there's not much to eat there. Back in the day, uh, most of the sites where there was where people lived, those were amazing productive sites where there was food. The island of Manhattan, was surrounded by oyster beds. So that's so like we're not adapted to have to live on mountaintops or the middle of deserts. That's ridiculous. There's just not enough calories. The carrying capacity of the land cannot support a large group of humans. So there are just few places. So that's I would say the physical survival. It's an important skill, but everyone's practicing that. No one's practicing all these other things to keep your tribe together. So let's say we're talking a dozen people. Let's say let's give ourselves big numbers. 24 people, right? We got a big group. Um, you have to be able to get along as a community. Um, your men need to be sensitive. Your women need to be strong. Your children, need to be taken care of. So those are all essential questions. I would posit this question. I would love answers to. Has anyone out there um, made and worked with diapers primitively? I you know I haven't. I know I have several answers for primitive toilet paper, mostly involving sphagnum moss, but that's an important survival question. Does anyone in your group know how to make diapers? These are gonna be the things that you're dealing with. Those are going to it's the smaller stuff you need to worry about more in choosing your people. If you're trying to figure out how to build your village, build your homesteading thing, whatever, we've we're we're modern humans. We have countless varieties of seeds that have already been domesticated. There's gonna be something that, oh, Dylan, what if the corn plague comes? Like, well, so eat beans, eat squash. There's always gonna be something that's available that produces an abundance of calories. We have hundreds of species of plants that are already wildly, perfectly domesticated for us to eat. So that's those are skills. Final one before I jump to the next question. Do you have someone who knows how to raise a garden? Do you have someone in your community? Because I'm trying to think. There aren't many, very few human cultures, even amongst the ones that are considered hunter-gatherers, that didn't have some form of horticulture, some kind of culture and tradition of sustainably harvesting plants and replanting them. That's nobody goes in and just harvests plants and walk away. Like, no, people have never been people who have to deal with real problems, freezing to death. People deal with starvation. You cannot be dumb. People have never been dumb. Cavemen, and that's a whole other source for a video. Cavemen were never dumb. Any depiction of them is, oh, they just they're like locusts on the landscape. Or, oh, they've got dirt in their faces. No, they didn't have dirt in their faces because it looks ugly, and no one likes to look ugly. People would have washed themselves. They would have kept themselves clean. And whatever plants they were harvesting, people aren't dumb. It's, hey, I'd like to eat this. This thing grows from a seed. I'm gonna plant these seeds, and that's an essential skill for even just talking primitively. Can you maintain a garden? Do you have anyone in your group who knows how to improve and amend soil? Do you have anyone who can make soil from scratch, soil that can feed humans? So that's a beautiful question. Thank you once again, Linda, and I'll stop there. I'll jump off to the next one. Here's a fun one from a friend of mine, Caitlin. Caitlin asks, what's the weirdest, grossest thing you've eaten in survival? So, again, I need to give a qualifier. I don't know if I'd really consider myself ever having gone into a survival, because I've never put myself in a situation where I felt like, oh, I might die right now because of whatever the situation is. I can't. I'm a dad. I can't take that many risks, and even before I was a dad, the risks I did take, like, yeah, all the survival situations I've heard from people who've been, oh, and then I was in the backwoods of Montana and I tried to cross a river and then it was too deep and I got swept away and all my matches were wet. Like, why were you crossing a river in the cold season in Montana in the first place? That's that's silly. That's very silly. So all these survival, yeah, but what if your lighter doesn't work, or what if you can't make a fire? Like, why are you in this situation in the first place? Where are you, and what was your reasoning for putting yourself in this situation? Anyway, so the weirdest thing I've eaten while I've been hitchhiking or just camping in the woods with just blanket and things like that. Uh, I'd have to say raw crayfish. I love raw seafood. I love raw shellfish. So I managed to capture a large number of crayfish. I was hitchhiking through the Smoky Mountains, and I think it was a south side of Smoky. So I'll figure exactly where I was. Somewhere near Cherokee, North Carolina. No, no, it was the half drained reservoir that the Fontana Dam holds back. So I guess Fontana Lake, Fontana Reservoir, and there was a stream running through it. And I was curious and I was walking along and hungry. And I knew there were crayfish there, and I started gathering crayfish and eating them because they taste good. And funny story, as I was eating like the third or fourth one, I was like, huh, there's so many crayfish here, and I just thought this little alarm bell, this little ding bell on my head. I'm like, huh, this is a food source. And whenever you're in a place where there's a food source, like something else is eating this. And like, I wonder what else is eating. I looked over at the shore and I saw a massive pile of bear scat filled with crayfish shells. And then I saw massive tracks. I'm like, oh, huh. I'm in the middle of this reservoir. I've got no place to run, and I'm now competing with black bears for food. So that was a scary moment. I spent some time, another just gross or weird thing. Spent some time. Oh, here's a great one. Spent some time this living. I say living in the streets, stealth camping, in Bellingham, Washington, and I was living just stealth camping on the outside in the outskirts of the village there, and one of the fun foods I found was starfish. Turns out that I knew they were echinoderms and they're related to sea urchin, and I love uni, one of my favorite sushi foods, and so I figured this should have something like that. So I found if you remove an arm, I think they're not exactly arms or limbs. It's more like a whole body. There's like 5 bodies all stuck together with one mouth in the middle. You remove one of the bodies, and inside there are eggs. There are roe. So raw starfish roe tastes delicious. I haven't heard anyone else eating it, but that was a weird thing. And also wild oysters, which is the least off-putting for whatever reason. Oysters are okay. Starfish aren't. People are weird about their food biases. So those were weird things. The grossest thing I've ever eaten, and this is something that I put a little practice into. I was curious about like the extreme. If you had to eat it, what would you eat? This is a little gross. Trigger warning. So if you want to cover your ears, if you're gonna gag, if anything's gonna be a gag, this will gross you out. Carrion maggots, fly larvae, maggots. They are completely edible. What I did was I gathered them off I forget what the carcass I had that I've been watching decay. Gathered a large volume of maggots, rinsed them in cold running water, put them in a jar with like some damp paper towels so we can get dehydrated. Let them sit for several hours. Rinsed them off again. My theory was to whatever's in their digestive tract, that's what's going to taste gross. So it went to their digestive system. They had an empty stomach, and then I cooked them 2 ways. I tried boiling them, and I took boiled ones and I tried frying the boiled ones. They taste like hard scrambled eggs. That's like if you took an egg, scrambled so you can't tell the difference between the yolk and the white, and I don't want to tell you, that's what it tastes like, with a distinct aftertaste, after flavor of rot. So imagine eating hard scrambled eggs and you're near a carcass. It's not the most unpleasant thing I've eaten. So yes, they're edible, and I assume for the taste they're full of fat. So that's the thing. I've heard stories of people in survival or eating carrion maggots. So yep, edible. I'm fine. Nothing bad happened to me. Moving right along, naturalist question from Larry. Why are blue jays tricksters? What are they? What are they lined out? Why are they doing that? What's the whole blue jay thing? So, I love this question because it lets me. It's one of the bird language skills I've worked on the most because I've been curious for my whole life. Why are blue jays giving these alarm calls? When are they alarming? When are they lying? Um, and I've put the time in on this, and so far I haven't seen anyone else. I had an epiphany about this. I haven't heard anyone else say this. If someone else has said this before me, please let me know. But I want this. If I'm the person saying it, I want it noted. You heard it here first. Maybe someone else has said it. This is from me. Uh, First off, what they're doing when they're nah, 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 that's the same sound you hear them make when they're scolding an owl or a hawk. So that is a scolding call. Um, but there isn't always an owl or a hawk. Over a 10-year period, every time I heard blue jays scolding, I would stalk up to them or get as close as I could, and they mostly ignore me. And see when are they scolding, when are they lying. Um, First, I'll need to explain the difference. So here's the way to tell. Do they have it? And this is corvids in general. So far I've confirmed this with blue jays and with crows. American crows. I haven't heard it with fish crows yet. I'm not certain. But I'm going to assume the same thing. And I haven't observed it with ravens. I don't know how raven scolding works, but with those corvids, um, they are lying. They're lying when their calls don't interrupt each other. So they'll be close, but they won't talk over each other. When they actually have a threat, an owl or a hawk, I've never seen an exception to this. They will talk over each other. There's much more stressful sound. My working theory as to what this is that when they're giving a fake call, I think they're listening to other birds. So they want to hear the other birds giving the alarm calls. The reason why corvids lie is, particularly blue jays, blue jays are kleptoparasites. They are egg thieves. So it's a benefit for them because blue jays live in I live in Connecticut. Blue jays live here year round. Every year in the springtime, flying from Costa Rica, from Mexico, from everywhere, are last year's baby scarlet tanagers, catbirds, whatever else flies south. Those babies have never learned the trick of oh damn it, the blue jays lies lost eggs. There's always naive prey. Blue jays are like P.T. Barnum. There's a sucker born every minute and two to fleece them. So every spring they say, oh, new prey, new dumb birds that don't understand that blue jays are lying when they give this alarm call. So they'll give the alarm, listen, see, and I've actually watched them fly in. They'll alarm. The new birds that don't know about blue jays will alarm too, or some of them will fly off fast. Oh no, a hawk! And then the blue jays will fly in, snatch an egg, and leave. So that's my working theory and my observation. The observation, like I haven't been disproven yet. When corvids are overlapping each other, they're telling the truth. There's something there. There's a hawk or an owl. Blue jays will occasionally scold snakes. I never heard crows scold snakes, but that's another matter. So that's what's going on with trickster behavior in corvids. Let's see. Now I got three beautiful questions from my cousin Brian. So Brian, hopefully it's okay outing you as my cousin here. So I'll jump right in. One of my favorite beautiful question. What are some misconceptions about sensitive men? So this is a question on the subject matter of tender masculinity. I think one of the more important misconceptions. This is, I guess, the first one that came to mind. And I'm not entirely sure why this was the first one that came to mind. Maybe it's sort of the opposite, sort of tying into Linda's question about tribes and my thoughts of toxic masculinity or hyper aggressive survivalist. I'm a survivalist and I know how to fight my way through a snowstorm, or whatever. Um, Misconception about sensitive men. For some reason, there's this association with sensitivity in men and not being able to take care of yourself in a fight. I'm not. It's weird. I'm not sure. I guess it's apparently that's an important thing to me, uh, and I think so much of what bothers me about the association of men, adult male humans, as being potential fighters, potentially dangerous. Um, it's what we are. We are adult male great apes, being potentially able to defend ourselves. We don't defend ourselves from predators by running. We can't outrun predators. We can outrun prey. We can't outrun predators. We can't. And when it comes to dealing with with threats to our families, basically the threat of other men, other adult male humans. It's what we are. I know the human head is actually pretty good. It's pretty tough at withstanding blunt force impact. So that's fighting is one of the things that humans do, and I guess, so somehow there's this assumption, this association of sensitivity, um, more like with being capable of being soft or having a soft nature, as being that imply that somehow it's like, oh, the soft boys, the soft guys aren't also capable of defending the people they love or defending themselves. Um, Wildly untrue. I have a lot of friends who are very involved in martial arts, and some of the people who, how to put it, of the people who I would most want to protect me if I needed someone to protect me from a physical threat. Um, they're wildly sensitive individuals. I don't want to necessarily out anyone, but goodness, like the one of my friends who's been teaching. Actually, no, I can't. I can. Ben Sanford of Tribal Edge. Give you a shout out. Um, he's an incredibly beautifully sensitive human being. I think I told him for his birthday last year that people compare him to a silverback gorilla, and I'm like, no, screw that. Silverback gorilla should be compared to you, not in the sense of he's big and muscly and climb trees, which he can also do, but in just how tender and gentle and protective he is. Um, for me, that's definitely a thing that I want to cover, and also that maybe want to also add to that. If you're a sensitive man, if you're a man who's working on your sensitivity, don't let anyone ever tell you somehow that you're less sensitive because you know how to take a hit, you know how to de-escalate a situation in a fight. Um, Again, tying back to Linda, those are the strong individuals you want. I know if you want to have your survivalist who could win a fight or something, sensitive. Those two concepts are in no way mutually exclusive. I think a beautiful example of this. Again, another series I just started the other day about tender masculinity in cinema. Lord of the Rings. Every single man there is wildly sensitive and tender, and those are all examples of, hey, my ability to rock to sing a baby to sleep has nothing to do with my ability to whatever swing an axe. Those are not those are in no way uh, mutually exclusive. I'll also add to like sensitivity, not just physical, being good in a fight, um, uh, just being strong and physically capable in general, has nothing to do with how sensitive you are. I'm an incredibly sensitive person. I coo like a grandmother whenever I see my new seedling sprout. That's uh, that's who I am. But I also split firewood. Um, I these are these are that's a thing that really does need to be Um, that's an unfair, wildly unfair to men and to humanity in general, expectation that because we're sensitive, because and here's a thing that's very important to me. I've just part of my what I do as a person is I do death doula work, so um, I in my I grew up on a farm, in on death happens a lot, and in sort of in my community, a lot of times there's some circumstance where something needs to die. Um, there's a bird that a cat maimed. They're like, oh no, its guts are on the outside, um, and that's hard. As a sensitive person, that tears me up. But I've also developed the skill to be able to say, oh no, quick, and break its neck. Um, so I think I added the capacity to take life is in no way mutually exclusive with sensitivity. In fact, I would argue if anyone is ever gonna be involved in taking life, in hunting, in raising and slaughtering your own animals, um, it should hurt. It should hurt you seeing that. That should never be, oh, it's easy, and I never trust anyone who ever acts nonchalant around death. Like, no, death. It's like death. It's like birth. There should be tears. There should be something that really touches you about that. Um, so for all these things about sensitivity, um, yeah, and this is tying into what it is to be a sensitive or tender man. Um, I would, in fact, I would go as far as like there's so much emphasis on how to make hard men soft. And I'm not going to say how to make. Yeah, the other question is how do you make a soft man hard? So, um, but seriously, for the men out there that are sensitive, first of all, I see you and you're beautiful. You're absolutely beautiful. Just so you know that I see that in you. And secondly, I challenge you to bring your sensitivity, to bring your empathy into a space where it's harder and it hurts more. Um, I would recommend if you know any local farms that have chickens, that slaughter chickens, I recommend putting yourself through that and letting yourself cry about it and letting yourself and work on that. Don't I would say if you're gonna do it, go all the way. Don't just say, "Oh, I killed a chicken and I cried and now I proved that." It's like, no, 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 no. Go all the way through it. Face that. As a sensitive man, face that. Um, there's more there. There's a lot there to be gained that will make you even more sensitive, make you a more strongly empathetic. Uh, Split firewood. Go through the frustration. Connect if you are very sensitive and have a hard time connecting with what we values or emotions or feelings that we tend to consider as masculine. Connect with the emotionality, the physical feeling of what it takes to, and I use wood splitting as a perfect example. The force it takes to break a piece of wood in two. There's this, I don't know, it's a perfect physical metaphor. If you can split a piece of wood, not only it takes physical strength, but also there's this, I don't know what the word for it is. There's this space, this moment of action that there's a lot to be gained. And if you can if you can connect your sensitivity, if you connect that part of you that coos when you see seedlings, that cries when you that cries when you see Gandalf fall from the bridge, you know? Feel that, connect that, and that it's like strength training. If you're tender in those classically masculine spaces, it'll make you strong. It'll make your tenderness stronger. It'll make your empathy stronger. It'll make you a better. It'll make you a better friend, a better healer, a better partner, a better lover, a better father, a better brother. Um, all these things. There's the challenges that come from that. So that's misconceptions. A long answer. Again, rants. Yes, I named it properly. Rants about sensitivity. I'm going to do them with that. Next question. Thank you, Brian. That was a beautiful question. Thank you so much. I love you. Next question, and these are sort of out of order. He threw out 30 different questions. I wanted to answer all of them, so I'm going to sprinkle them in all of my videos here. What first aid skills are essential in wilderness survival? Keeping your wounds clean. 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 I've seen infections in the woods. It happens like that. Especially on your feet. Take care of your feet. My good gracious, take care of your feet. Being able to, and this is an important comment about primitive herbalism. You don't have to be the most advanced. You don't have to be able to find, this is the rare, a potion, like a witch around a cauldron, which is a beautiful, beautiful skill. I should actually get my sister Kat to guest star on one of these and maybe give her take on wilderness survival, primitive first aid. But know your local plants that can clean wounds. It's not that complicated. I live in Connecticut. Sweet fern comes to mind. You can make a poultice out of it. The leaves ground up and either a spit poultice, chewed in your mouth, and then you put the wad on the wound. Botanic acid in it is what's acts as the antibacterial, so that's helpful. Understand how to keep wound. How bad is the wound? How clean do you have to keep it? Is it a scrape? Is it going to heal? How to handle burns. If you're working with fire regularly, you'll get a few small burns here or there. A spark flies and gets you get a tiny little second degree burn, a little blister. You got to keep that clean. You got to know how to take care of that. That's very important. That's a whole other video to cover on that. But more than anything, I would say that is tending wounds. How to put together a primitive bandage. Again, sphagnum moss. It's not just good for toilet paper. Amazing stuff. Really good. So just generally handling all that small stuff that if you have access to warm water and soap in a shower, not a problem at all. I got a bunch of mosquito bites at warm water, soap, shower, or you can bathe. If you're near the ocean, bathe in salt water. That'll fix it. If you're in the middle of the woods, bug bites, how to take care of those things. You need to have that. That's absolutely essential. How to take care of any of the weird rashes you get, whether it's I was stung by a caterpillar. I've now got this horrible rash. I have poison ivy that I now have a horrible rash. These are all very important. So I'd say first aid, tending wounds, and keeping yourself clean. That's a first aid skill. That's absolutely pre first aid. Keeping your whole body clean. Absolutely important. You need to have, if you're going in the woods for a long time, you need to have a personal hygiene regimen that allows you to keep your body clean. So, I've got a scrape. My skin wasn't covered in schmutz, so it wasn't immediately infected. So that would be, I would say, just off the top of my head, hands down, the most important first aid skill. And just don't be silly. Don't break limbs. Someone, how do I make a splint so I don't break your arm? What were you doing? What were you doing? Don't be foolish. First aid skill, don't be foolish. ask yourself, what would happen if the worst happened? So that's an essential survival skill is not being silly. For first aid, and yeah, basic get a basic warfare course. Wilderness first responder. You should know how much pressure you put on a cut. That's very important. How long you keep it. How to tend to bleeding injuries. These are That's basically what you're going to be able to handle in wilderness survival. Um, Fortunately, it's weirdly enough, breaks like a broken bone, as long as it's not sticking to the skin, a compound fracture, um, humans survive breaks really well. We're great apes. Great apes are really good, right up there with like white-tailed deer. We're really good at surviving breaks. And oh no, it broke funny. Now my arm's shorter. I from personally I have this knuckle is shorter than this one because I broke it. Got in a fist fight when I was a kid, and I broke this knuckle, and it was in the wrong spot for 5 days. And I was 15. My the bones were sticky, and the orthopedic surgeon, just using his hands, squeezed it back into place, and it was mostly there, but still it healed the wrong spot. So my hand would probably still work if it wasn't fixed. But yeah, it's as far as handling a compound fracture, I have no idea. I'd be horrified if that happened. I hope it never happened. I hope I'm never around that. I'm very squeamish around the concept even of a compound fracture. So, final question from Brian. God, I love this question. I'm gonna try and keep this not too much more than an hour, but who knows? This is just a thing I'm very passionate about, so I'll cover this question. How do you navigate through dense vegetation and/or rough terrain quietly? Oh, this I'll have to do a whole other video on this, but it's too fun a question not to start into. Goodness. Again, I love tooting my own horn. I love attention. I love the attention when I can do stuff that I'm really proud about because I've worked at it. I'm proud about my Blue Jay thing. I'm proud about my ability to move over broken terrain, the rough ground, or through thick vegetation without making a lot of noise getting caught up. It's a compliment I received from so many people, and it feels